And Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. When we're taking a look at making a difference in the world today, obviously it's the local people that make a difference. It's the people in the Treasure Valley that make a difference. And I want to thank John, who called in wanting to join the Penny Patrol, Gerald, who just emailed me. If you're just tuning in for the first time, maybe you're listening on our affiliate station, 107.5 FM, to KIDO Talk Radio. We are collecting pennies to help the Boise Rescue Mission. Details on our website, or you can simply email me, kevin@KIDOTalkRadio.com. We will collect your pennies as part of Miller's Mission, which is where we live, at the Walmart in Nampa for a week at the end of May. More details at KIDOTalkRadio.com, but it is very humbling, once again, to be with you on our next great crusade. And here, we don't have a problem calling it a crusade. Joining us now from Washington, D.C., Matthew Brunson, to take a look at religious liberty outside of abortion areas and whether or not lawmakers, law officials are really protecting freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Mr. Brunson, thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
So this latest case where we have a lawmaker attacking people for exercising their First Amendment, what are the details?
Well, specifically, we're talking about a Pennsylvania state legislator by the name of Brian Sims, who confronted a woman who was simply praying outside a Planned Parenthood clinic last week, and then posted a video to social media in which she called for doxing, which is a term that's used for revealing private personal information and trying to humiliate and intimidate someone in social media. He subsequently posted another video apologizing and saying that he was aggressive, but it's one of those non-apology apologies. It raises a whole bunch of important questions, I think, that need to be asked regarding freedom of speech as well as proper behavior by elected officials.
Well, the idea that he labeled this lady who was praying a Bible bully and that Christians are Bible bullies?
That's right. He used a number of belittling terms for what were actually young girls. They were teenage girls involved in this who were silently praying for people at a Planned Parenthood clinic, which is their constitutionally protected rights. The idea, too, of posting all of this in social media raises the question of where sort of Twitter is in its application of rules. We've had a lot of people banned from Twitter and other social media platforms for violating sort of the terms of service. And yet, as far as I'm aware, there has been no action taken against this individual for what was clearly calling for a sort of a public mob to descend, at least in social media, on these young girls.
Well, and we seem to see that in popular culture where the Christians are the bad people and they need to be eradicated, which goes against everything that this great country was founded on.
You're absolutely right. He characterized these young women as white people, pseudo-Christian. He is really attempting to shame them, but it picks up really, I think, something that we're beginning to see a lot more of, and that is a real cultural effort to push believers in general, but Christians in particular, out of the public square. And also in the advancement of what they see as a progressive agenda, they're willing to go to pretty extreme lengths. So this is not the first incident like this. I want to be clear that he was not violent toward these young girls, but we have seen a rising number of incidents across the United States. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had an 82-year-old pro-life protester who was pushed by a young woman in Louisville, ended up with a broken leg, and that young woman is now under threat of prosecution, I think, for a felony for attacking the pro-life protester. But this is indicative, I think, of the rising levels of rhetoric and also violence toward Christians and pro-life people.
Why the attacks on pro-life people? Why do they call us bigot and intolerant? When we look at the issue itself, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Well, it is. But it's also, I think, two things are at work. The first is that within culture, we're seeing a rising, as I was mentioning, rising levels of intolerance and bigotry toward Christians and pro-lifers in particular. A reflection, I think, of the times of the hyperpolarization. But it also, I think, stems in part because there is a type of visceral realization on the part of the pro-abortion movement that this is an argument more and more they're beginning to lose. Certainly in culture we're seeing, and also in politics, we're seeing the radical application of new types of laws. We've just spent this early part of the year seeing New York pass some of the most egregious, horrifying legislation that would essentially be tantamount to infanticide. We've seen the discussions in Virginia about similar bills, and we're seeing similar legislation being promoted and even passed across the country. So as this movement runs more and more headlong into opposition on the part of the average American, the movement itself, the pro-abortion movement, is increasingly desperate.
Any thoughts on what people here in Idaho can do?
Well, the first is support those people who are working toward a peaceful set of protests and raising public awareness about the problems created by abortion. We have moral arguments, we have ethical arguments, we have demographic arguments. The weight of scientific evidence is increasingly on our side as well. And I think that's an important aspect for anyone who considers themselves to be pro-life, to arm yourself with the latest information about the development of a child, an unborn child, the arguments of just where this type of legislation is going, and also be prepared for the type of hostility that we're seeing evidenced by Representative Sims, evidenced by the young woman in Louisville. But be prepared for that. And if you're unable to face that, give support to those who are.
Mr. Bronson, we appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Good to be with you anytime.
And by the way, in follow-up to a story that we brought you yesterday, the city of Denver did the right thing. They voted no to magic mushrooms. They're going to continue to criminalize them. Thank you, Denver, Colorado, for making the right choice. More of your phone calls, Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. We go to Hank in Boise. Hank, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning. I was listening to Mark. He's, over the years, has made a lot of protests about oil prices. I'm not an expert by any means, but let me posit a couple thoughts. One thing, Trump is engaging in full all-out economic warfare on Iran, and basically he's squeezed the Iranians pretty much out of the European oil market, and we're making up that oil with our supply. And, of course, with the Iranian oil out of there, that's going to put upward pressure on overall world prices. And then the other thing is Trump is also applying pressure. The last big customer that Iran has is China, and Trump is playing pressure on China to not buy Iranian oil. And of course, if he succeeds in that, he could probably totally collapse the Iranian regime. So this isn't. I haven't heard. I know that this is going on, but nobody's brought that up in the debate. And the other thing I would mention is that aren't oil prices, if I'm not mistaken, a futures thing? In other words, you bid on a contract saying that you will deliver oil at such and such a price at such and such a date. And of course, the speculative people who buy these contractors are like any other speculators. They have to make a guess of what they think the price is, or if they make the wrong guess, they lose their shirts on these contracts. They got to buy the oil. If the price drops, they're selling at a loss. Isn't that in that sense? I don't see where there's a conspiracy. I don't think it's likely that there's a conspiracy in the boardroom where we're going to jack up the price. Oil. Good old John Rockefeller or something like this. And there's too many sources of oil. What I'm saying is the commodity prices, by its nature, is volatile. So it can go up dramatically one day, it can decline really, it can just as fastly drop too. And of course, the supply and demand. But I'm just throwing these subjects up to full debate. And also, I might point out that this topic has been a periodic issue in Idaho for almost 100 years, going back to District Governor Baldrige in 1927. So I don't know. I'm just throwing my thoughts in that and see what other people think about it.
Well, you've come to the right place. Thank you, Hank.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Let's go to John in Middleton. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Kevin. I appreciate that the last guest talking about the censorship. There was another heavy round of purging of conservative Christian voices over this past weekend. Laura Loomer, Alex Jones, Paul Watson. These are red-blooded Americans, pro-life, Christian values, Judeo-Christian values, whatnot. And, you may not have to agree with everything everybody says, either who's a conservative or Christian, but these people should not be silenced the way they are. And what I think, in terms of you asked them, what can Idahoans do? I think we need to pressure our elected officials to introduce legislation to protect people as a protected class, Christians, conservatives, and your political affiliation. Because we don't have that right now, and we're getting slaughtered on the digital platforms. Silence that's going to have election consequences. They know they can't compete with our ideas if we're allowed to speak. But if we're not allowed to speak and we're just getting pushed into these little corners here and there, it's going to have major problems. That's why I forget who it was, Allquest or Fulcher, who I called in, and you were so awesome to let me even talk to him. And I asked him about the censorship, and he just played dumb as a rock. I just envision our politicians sometimes, again, in a country club, with their khakis and their loafers and their sweater tied around their neck, and they're sipping on the Arnold Palmer, and they're working hard for the people, but we can't get anything. It's really tough to get anything done around here. It's like, come on, man, like, wake up. You're not even acknowledging the gorilla in the room. And, I don't know, but it's serious. Your friend Lars Larson got a taste of it. He got banned on Twitter for nothing. So it's happening, Kevin. It's going to be at your doorstep soon, too. So we definitely need to pressure our elected officials to introduce legislation to protect people with their political affiliation. What do you think about that?
Well, there's a reason, John, while that I moved to Idaho, that I was blackballed by the industry because of President Obama. It's documented. If you Google Kevin Miller Obama, why I'm paranoid about losing my job all the time is because I know exactly what they are and what they're capable of. And I know people in the Treasure Valley have targeted me, calling me a right-wing extremist, trying to get this program off the air. It goes on all the time. And you are correct. They want to destroy us.
They do. And they're never going to stop. Right. Like, hate has to vent. Like, you can't bottle hate. It's like an endless thing that consumes people, and they're so fueled by it, they just will never ever stop. So they're purging these people who are kind of at a different public profile right now, but it's coming down to the individual level. Like, you can't even type anything positive about Alex Jones. They censor you now. Their AI is so sophisticated. They censor you before you can even hit send on Facebook. So it's coming. It's here, and we need to not just play dumb.
Look, I can tell you firsthand. Last year, we had Robert Spencer on, and we were talking to him and a friend of ours. It was in Washington, and they put it on Facebook. Robert Spencer, who is the author of JihadWatch.org, Facebook within 5 minutes zapped it and sent them a warning. The next mention of Spencer, they would remove their rights. They would suspend him for 24 hours. Yet the jihadis can run wild and threaten to kill all of us on Facebook.
All day long, all the racists on the left can talk about how evil white people are, and how it's just a complete double standard. The wickedness and evilness is embraced and promoted. What's good and reasonable and sensible is just it's labeled as hate. It's this complete cuckoo land we're living in. But our elected officials here, I agree. I moved here too, Kevin, because of same sort of things you did. But our elected officials, I'm sorry, they're kind of asleep at the wheel on this, and they really need to wake up. And you're one of the few people who can challenge them and in your own way. But I think we need to let them know this is a real issue, and they need to be it needs to be at the top of their list, on the radar of things that need to be done. I mean, do you agree with that?
I would. John, I would, and I appreciate you listening to KIDO Talk Radio and the Kevin Miller Show, brother.
You're the man. Have a good one.
Thank you. I wish I were the man. Let's go to Dean in Cuna with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dean.
Good morning. I'd just like to say there's a reason why our government officials aren't reacting to the internet censorship, because they could easily regulate it as a public utility, like the phone system, and they could also use the civil rights laws to regulate it, to make it open to everyone. But the pseudo Republicans like the internet censorship, and they're just a bunch of blue-blooded Rockefeller Republicans that they really don't care about censorship. They actually enjoy it, and they think it's to their benefit, so that's why they allow it.
You could say closet Democrats.
Yeah, they're rhino Republicans, because if you just look at the laws, it's totally a public utility, the internet. I mean, it's using, well, they don't really even use the phone system anymore because, I mean, the wires, because, it's all microwave transmitted now, but it can be regulated easy, and it wouldn't be a burden on the company. So that's just my statement, that the Republicans really enjoy the censorship, and they don't care about Laura Loomer or Paul Joseph Watson. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and appreciate that, Dean. And you can really go back to the first 2 years of the Trump presidency when no one had the president's back, and if the Republicans had just been competent, those that were in the House at the time, the wall would have been built. Oh, we can't do that. We'll get in trouble. Right? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And some great news on the right. Let me share that with you. Thank you, Sean Hannity. Don't forget Lars Larson follows Sean right here on KIDO Talk Radio. We've got a federal appeals court approving a policy forcing the asylum seekers, the illegals, to wait in Mexico. The president tweeting about this. We're getting things done. We're going to build that wall. Great news that you won't hear anywhere else as we move along. Nancy Pelosi yesterday saying the president becoming self-impeachable over White House obstruction. If you missed our interview with former federal prosecutor Chuck Ambrose, we'll have it up thanks to Ray Amaya. Check out that out, 7 o'clock hour, that podcast on YouTube. You don't want to miss it. It is going to be something that people will be talking about for quite some time, where he goes over the history of Mueller, the history of Comey, the history of William Barr, and how all this stuff about impeachment and contempt, nothing legally, not a leg to stand on. Of course, you're not going to hear that anywhere else. You're not going to hear that with the mainstream media, because what do they want? They want to continue on with the coup. That's what they want to do, unfortunately. But we are here, and we continue to rally and to make a difference, a better difference, the right difference in the Treasure Valley. KIDO Talk Radio time, 8:26. Traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. And coming up, we're going to take a look at the fight for vaccinations. One state says you're not going to have a choice whether or not your kid can be vaccinated. And another state lawmaker calls vaccinations sorcery. That's right. That's coming up after the news at the bottom of the hour. This just in, we've been covering this for quite some time. Georgia has officially passed some of the strongest pro-life legislation in the nation. Governor Brian Kemp, you remember him. He was fighting against Stacey Abrams. Well, he fulfilled his promise to be a pro-life governor, stating the new rules concerning the heartbeat legislation, which I believe Utah either passed or is working on that. The new rules prohibit abortion if a heartbeat can be detected, effectively banning abortion after 6 weeks. Exceptions are permitted in the cases of rape, incest, or danger to the mother. Now, the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, people that are funded by our own taxpayers, our own tax dollars, will be challenged in court, something that has happened in other states that have passed similar laws. And people will blame Governor Kemp. We already have the new movie industry coming after him saying, we're pulling out of Georgia because they're banning abortions. Well, they're not banning abortions, but the abortion industry, through, the diligent undercover efforts of many pro-life reporters, has been exposed. You go back to that Planned Parenthood video where they were selling body parts, literally. And Planned Parenthood still hasn't been defunded. Because of the extreme that has gone with the abortion lobby, you have people fighting back. And Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Roberts will be put on the spot. You don't have to worry about Alito. You don't have to worry about Thomas. But Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Roberts will be put on the spot, particularly Roberts and Kavanaugh when it comes to deciding these cases, because people are like little kids. If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And when we're talking about the life of the unborn, Sean Hannity was talking about this, where you have post-abortion or post-birth abortions, and people saying that with a straight face, like the Virginia governor. Well, of course you're going to have conservative states like Georgia and Utah react to that, as they should. The question is, what about Idaho? We'll address that question and more next. Very, very soon. Don't go anywhere. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. Blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller, this morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So we take a look at what happened in Georgia with the heartbeat abortion bill, the pro-life legislation. After 6 weeks, if they can detect a heartbeat, no more abortions in Georgia. Expect the usual suspects to go after Governor Kemp and everyone else. What about the state of Idaho? 580-5436. 580-KIDO. If you're trying to get in, we'll work on the phones. I know Ray Ahmad, and I love doing this here. He's actually turning the screws right now to work on that. We appreciate your patience. And while we're doing that, how about a story of inspiration? An inspiration involving someone who not only knows the meaning of service, but has served our great nation. Now, no matter how old you are or how young you are, the idea of living to 85, 95, simply amazing these days, right? Here we have a 95-year-old World War II veteran who left us while returning from an honor flight. That's right. A 95-year-old World War II veteran died while returning home from an honor flight event in Washington, D.C. Now, if you're not familiar with what the honor flight is, the honor flight is paid for by corporations that donate their time, that donate their resources, and really what they do is they allow people that have served our country to go to Washington, D.C. And if you're West Coast, Washington, D.C. is a long way, and it's a pain, right? It's a long way, and it's a pain. Well, imagine serving your country. You're 95 years old, and you get to go see the World War II Veterans Memorial. Frank Manchel of San Diego, returning home from an all-expense-paid trip where he was honored along with other World War II veterans. Officials say he collapsed during the flight and could not be revived, sadly. Emergency workers and law enforcement officials saluted as Manchell's body was carried off the plane draped in an American flag. Manchell served as a technical sergeant in the Army during World War II. His son Bruce says the honor flight was an amazing experience for his father before his death, which begs the question. Do you know anyone who's a veteran of World War II that they're still alive today? Most of us think about World War II through the lenses of Saving Private Ryan or the magic of Steven Spielberg or the portrayal of Private Ryan by, Matt Damon, I guess, and Tom Hanks, right? These folks gave so much, and then they came back and went to work. The other day I was talking to somebody. I'll out this person just because I love her, my wife, Mrs. Miller. And we're sitting around doing what we do with our two little Millies, Carolina Millie, Buster Millie, Carolina from the state of North Carolina, Buster Millie from Idaho, my two little dachshunds. And she's watching this gala, and she says, we need to go to the galas. And I go, we're not, I'm choking up thinking about this. We're not gala people. We're people that, you go to a church rummage sale, or you go to, a community event. You go where the real people are. Nothing against the gala folks, nothing against anything else. But when you think of people that served in World War II, that middle class, the baby boomers that gave us, the World War II generation that gave us the baby boomers, these people, you didn't have the diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. You didn't have the diagnosis of what was wrong with the country, you didn't have the diagnosis that we have today. These people just went and worked with their hands. They're carpenters. They were plumbers. They built this country. Some of them, hopefully a lot of them, took advantage of the GI Bill. And unlike their successors, the baby boomers and others, they stayed married and they lived the American dream. So when we think of World War II veterans, you talk about a national treasury that is just diminishing. And if anyone that you know served in World War II, my goodness gracious. And World War II, because I suppose in its place in history, does not get the amount of attention that it used to. Remember, maybe when you were a kid, it was you couldn't wait to get to World War II because it was so dramatic. Imagine living in that drama, right? Imagine being a part of that. And the fate of the world were in the hands of average, ordinary Americans. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Apparently, the phones are down. Is that correct? They're back? We'll keep working on it. No worries. But let me share this with you here. The Oregon House has passed a tough vaccine rules that will say, if you're a parent, you can't claim personal, philosophical, or religious exemptions to avoid school vaccine requirements. Let's take a listen here on KIDO Talk Radio.
They say they're not anti-vaccine. They feel immunizations are safe for some, but not all children.
Should never be a mandate for a product that comes with severe risks.
And they tell us they're for choice. Like Emily Gonzalez, a mom of 3.
And yes, some people can have a terrible side effect from a case of measles, but people can also have terrible side effects from the vaccine.
She believes her son had a seizure after getting a Hep B shot as a newborn. Gonzalez is a member of Oregonians for Medical Freedom, the group protesting House Bill 3063.
And it's time to kill this bill.
Arguing vaccine injury and adverse reactions affect thousands of families in Oregon.
We're the injured ones. We want them to protect us.
Currently in the legislature, the bill would eliminate parents' ability to refuse to vaccinate their children for religious or personal reasons and still send their kids to school. Medical exemptions recognized in Oregon would still be allowed.
Holding education and replacement of vaccines is coercion.
This comes amidst one of the largest measles outbreaks in the Pacific Northwest, one that brought the U.S. Surgeon General to Vancouver Wednesday.
What I really believe is that we need to make it easier to get a vaccination than it is to get an exemption.
And by the way, this is from KGW8. If that voice sounds familiar, that's Morgan Boyston. She used to work at Channel 7. We loved Morgan, did a great job. I remember when she first came back from college, and she was just so happy to be a part of Channel 7. Now she's in Portland, but you can hear her voice if that sounds familiar. So here's the story, and the phones are back thanks to, again, Ray Amaya. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So in Oregon, there are no more exemptions that you don't want your kid vaccinated. There's no philosophical exemptions, no religious exemptions because of the measles. Now, why all of a sudden are the measles coming back? We've talked about this. And you have the Surgeon General there. You have the measles breaking out. You don't want people to die from it. But on the other hand, well, maybe you solve the problem by if you don't get your kid vaccinated, then they become homeschooled. They school themselves.
Unless your child has underlying serious health risks, there is virtually no danger to having your kids vaccinated.
Multnomah County Commissioner.
Now, here you have it. Multnomah County Commissioner says there's no danger from the vaccinations. Now, remember in New York where they were threatening people with mandatory vaccinations? And in Idaho, you remember Representative Giddings, she had something about vaccinations that got tabled at in the Idaho House. But this begs the question, and people have had concerns about vaccinations, saying they cause illnesses. And you have many people that have said to me, Kevin Miller, I know this vaccine caused me to get sick. I know this vaccine is wrong. Now, do they have any scientific evidence? No. But this is an impressive example of the state saying, enough, you have no choices. And this is right next door.
Sharon Myron, also an ER doctor, says there are serious consequences for your child and others if you choose not to vaccinate.
Vaccinations are there for a reason. They prevent serious communicable diseases that can cause serious harm and even death.
And there we have it. Again, young Morgan Boyston, the pride of the Treasure Valley, now in Oregon. Good for her. We certainly miss her. Great reporting. Wonderful job there getting both sides of the story. So at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, 35 to 25 in Oregon, if you're a parent, sorry, your kid gets the shot. No choice. Let's get your thoughts. Jesse in Boise with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Jesse.
Good morning. How are you today?
You know, still employed, which is a good thing. And you, sir?
Same here. Very much employed.
Great to hear.
So I just want to put in my 2 cents. So I was born and raised in Idaho. In my 20s and 30s, I lived in California, and they were trying to push the same thing with the vaccines and their mandates of what has to be done. And it's just kind of an interesting concept where, you know, we have discussions on many different issues throughout our country with the wall, taxes, and everything else. It doesn't seem like most politicians understand what needs to be done. And like many of our gripes, these politicians keep pushing more and more things down our throat without our choice. So I feel like with the vaccines, you know, a politician has no clue when it comes down to the reactions of vaccines. We all understand what can happen if you don't have your child vaccinated. But at the same time, if a child is vaccinated and the other child is not, isn't that the point of a parent's choice to vaccinate their child against measles or what have you? And that's the whole point of it, where they won't be getting, or they have lesser chances of getting this sickness or disease. And so it just seems counterproductive that, you know, a politician can kind of force this upon everybody, because like in California, they start to become endless vaccines, and they keep introducing more and more from when we were kids with only a handful of vaccinations. And now, I mean, I don't even remember the amount of vaccinations that the typical child gets currently.
Well, and again, I go back to your point. I think it's the parent's choice.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I just wanted to call because I don't agree with these politicians, you know, with their assaulting people on this force of what they deem necessary.
Jesse, thank you. Thank you for listening to KIDO Talk Radio, sir.
Thank you.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. We go to Pro-Life, who joins us now with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pro-Life.
Yeah. Well, anyway, when you're pro-life, you're for preserving health and life. And you know,
are you down with the vaccines? By the way, the governor of Oregon, Kate Brown, that lovely young lady, says that she plans to sign the bill if it passes the Senate.
Yeah, well, she's for forced everything. She says she's bisexual, and I don't believe that. She's just doing that for a political reason. But anyway,
you're saying it's politically beneficial to be a bisexual in Oregon?
Yeah, Western Oregon. That's right. If you're got some kind of acronyms after your name, you do better. But anyway,
so how does that work? The whole being a bisexual thing.
I don't know how it works. I never practice it. So
well, that's good that you told us that you've never practiced it. But I mean, I don't know. Is it every other day? One day you're attracted to this. I don't know how it works.
I don't know. It's not natural. It's against God's law. But anyway, we won't be able to settle a vaccine thing until we have a state that goes for a few decades without vaccines and another state go with mandatory vaccines, and you're going to see a lot of people. Then you'll be able to tell the difference. Now, a lot of people are going to move from Oregon to Idaho because they don't want mandatory vaccinations. So as long as you're the free state, people are going to flee to you. You're the refuge, and we're the refuge now for a lot of stuff, and it's good because people are freedom-minded.
I think we got a bunch of libs coming in. They're taking over.
Well, some of them might be.
You could be a lib as well, for all I know.
Yeah, right.
Maybe they could get a vaccine for the libs. Oh, we better not say that. They'll think. Let me apologize if the libs are offended. No, we don't want a vaccine. We want it.
We need to put big billboards up on all of the major highways coming into the state that say, if you're pro-life, if you're if you're anti-gay, if you're anti-bisexual, whatever, anti-vaccine, we're welcome.
We're the anti-state. Well, that'd be like welcome home. All right. More of your calls next. Dwight and Tess and you talking about Oregon's decision to say no more exemptions. Your kids will be vaccinated or else. And you've got a petition drive to release the hemp truckers. All that and more before Glenn Beck with me, Kevin Miller. Stay tuned. Stay with us. KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget Dave Ramsey today. Glad Dave is back. Noon to 3. Tess in Boise joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Always so nice to hear everyone. Hey, one of the things I just wanted to say is, so there's an election coming up here for the mayor and for the city council. So obviously, if you don't like them, then you can vote them out here in November and think about fighting for office. The mayor makes over $100,000 and the city council makes over 22 or 23. But something I wanted to say quickly about vaccines, if you go to the CDC site, what you're going to see is a large percentage of those individuals that are involved in the breakout are family members from one individual who came from overseas to visit during the holidays. That's the first 120-plus people, not vaccinated. But what they also haven't told you is that a huge percentage of the people that developed this have either been fully or partially vaccinated already, and they're attributing it to what they call vaccine failure. So if vaccines don't hurt you, why does the government pay out millions of dollars? And hey, you know what? You can also get tested. Some people wonder why more than one child in a family turns out with autism. Well, they could have been tested to see if that child from that mother could be able to pass. It's a gene test that says you can pass out these metals, these toxins that are in that particular vaccination. And if they can't clear it, then you shouldn't vaccinate your child.
Tess, thank you for the call. Dwight, hang on quickly. Traffic and weather together. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave. Quickly to Dwight. Dwight, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kevin. Kevin, the tyranny, the medical tyranny, vaccination tyranny, and the government tyranny is going to keep coming at us. The thing that's not happening to stop it is that conservatives are not standing up on the street doing educational expose demonstrations in front of strategic and tactical venues like the hospitals. And the goal of the people in front of the hospital exposing the lies, the diabetes industry, the cancer industry, the heart industry is all a pack of lies. Their procedures and their drugs do not work. They make it worse, just like the vaccinations. And they're coming at you with more vaccinations. The thing to do is expose their lies. I watched this gal, Abby, what's her name, of the movie, the real one, of the movie Unplanned. And this woman is dynamite because she's telling the truth about Planned Parenthood.